Chapter 1. The Foundation of Connection. There is a persistent, almost romantic myth woven deeply into the fabric of our culture. It is the legend of the self-made individual, the lone wolf who scales the mountain of success armed with nothing but raw talent, fierce independence, and sheer willpower. We are subtly taught from a young age to admire the person who puts their head down, grinds through the long, grueling hours in total isolation, and somehow builds an empire entirely on their own. But if you have lived long enough, and if you have paid close attention to how the world actually moves and breathes, you already know the quiet truth. The lone wolf eventually reaches a wall they cannot climb alone. Sooner or later, every solitary journey reaches its absolute limit, and a career built in isolation will inevitably grind to a standstill. No matter how brilliant you are, no matter how tirelessly you work, or how sharply you hone your craft, we are fundamentally, biologically, and economically dependent on other human beings to bring our grandest visions into reality. Building a life, a career, or a business without cultivating a strong, deeply rooted foundation of human relationships is exactly like constructing a magnificent, towering house on a foundation of loose sand. In the calm weather, the house might look incredibly impressive to passers-by. But as the years pass, the unseen foundations slowly weaken, and when the inevitable storms of life arrive, the economic downturns, the sudden industry shifts, the personal crises, you may suddenly find yourself sinking, with nothing solid to hold on to. Consider the sheer mechanics of opportunity. Opportunities do not float in the ether. They are attached to people. The doors you wish to walk through are currently locked, and other people are holding the keys. This is not a matter of cynical manipulation, it is simply the way human trust operates. When researchers closely examined how professionals actually secured their livelihoods, the results shattered the illusion of pure, isolated merit. In a classic study of career mobility, researchers discovered that well over half of the individuals surveyed had found their positions through personal contacts, while a mere fraction found their way through public advertisements or cold applications. This reality becomes sharply magnified during periods of intense economic uncertainty. When the market shakes, when turnover is high and job security feels like a distant memory, a deeply rooted personal network becomes your ultimate safety net. Those who have spent years quietly building genuine connections rarely find themselves adrift for long because their community rises up to catch them. Furthermore, the landscape of our work is constantly shifting underneath our feet. The person who is brewing coffee and organizing files as an entry-level assistant today might very well be sitting in the executive chair tomorrow. If you move through the world with a closed heart, ignoring those you deem unimportant, you are severely limiting your future. But if you are widely known, and more importantly, widely liked because you have consistently shown yourself to be genuinely generous, friendly, and deeply helpful, that goodwill compounds over time. It eventually pays dividends in ways you could never possibly engineer or predict. If human connection is the undeniable bedrock of a meaningful and successful life, we must ask ourselves a difficult question. Why do so many of us retreat into our shells? Why do we sit quietly in the corner of the room, staring at our phones, letting incredible human potential walk right past us? The answer is usually rooted in a single, paralyzing emotion, the fear of rejection. This fear is intensely familiar to every single one of us, and it is absolutely nothing to be ashamed of. It is a primal instinct deeply embedded in our psychology to avoid the sting of someone turning their back on us. Very few people are born as natural extroverts, possessing the effortless courage to stroll up to complete strangers and easily win them over. Most of us feel the heavy weight of hesitation in our chests. But the most liberating truth you can internalize right now is that the art of connecting with others is exactly that, an art. And like any art, like any craft or discipline, it can be systematically learned, practiced, and mastered. You do not need a personality transplant to succeed. You simply need to observe and practice. You can begin by simply paying close attention to those who navigate social spaces with grace. Watch how an expert goes about making others feel comfortable. Take mental notes on their posture and their phrasing, and let yourself be inspired by their quiet confidence. You can read, study, and take courses to refine your demeanor and your rhetoric, treating communication as a vital skill rather than a fixed genetic trait. But eventually, all the theory in the world must give way to action. Sooner or later, you simply have to take a deep breath and take the plunge. You might start by making a quiet, personal commitment to just get to know one single new person every week. With every small, terrifying step you take, the fear loses its grip, and the mechanics of reaching out become a little more natural. To truly understand how this simple courage can alter the trajectory of a human life, picture a man working the overnight shift in a sprawling, deafening steel mill. He is a laborer of incredibly humble means, spending his days covered in grease, entirely invisible to the upper management of the corporation. But this man has a bright, fiercely intelligent daughter, and he harbors a burning desire for her to have a life far beyond the grueling physical toll of the factory floor. He knows she belongs in a prestigious academic program, but he has no money, no pedigree, and no connections. He could have easily succumbed to the reality of his station. He could have told himself that people like him do not speak to people in power. Instead, driven by a love stronger than his fear of rejection, he does the unthinkable. At the end of a grueling 14-hour shift, still wearing his heavy steel-toed boots, he bypasses his immediate supervisor. He bypasses the floor manager. He bypasses the regional director. He walks directly into the carpeted silent halls of the executive suite, demanding a brief moment with the ultimate head of the entire firm. When he finally stands before the executive, a person separated from him by vast oceans of wealth and class, he simply looks the man in the eye and asks for help. He asks for a chance for his child. The executive is profoundly struck, not by a polished elevator pitch, but by the raw, naked courage and humanity of a father advocating for his family. Moved by this incredible display of boldness, the executive personally intervenes, pulling the strings necessary to secure the daughter's education. This is the true heartbeat of human connection. It is not about exchanging glossy business cards, and it is certainly not about shallow manipulation. It is about the profound realization that on the other side of your fear is another human being. When you strip away the titles, the corporate structures, and the societal barriers, we are all simply people waiting to be reached. The willingness to step out of the shadows, to risk a moment of vulnerability, and to truly see and be seen by others is the single greatest foundation you can ever build. But to make these connections truly last, to ensure they do not wither away after the first brave introduction, you must learn the true currency that sustains them. You must learn how to give before you ever think of taking. Ciao! Chapter 2. The Currency of Generosity. We have all found ourselves standing in the middle of a sterile, brightly lit room at a forced professional gathering, watching a very specific type of person operate. You know exactly who this is. It is the individual who scans the room with a predatory gaze, looking over your shoulder while you are speaking to them, desperately trying to locate someone more important in the crowd. They move frantically from circle to circle, attempting to rid themselves of as many business cards as physically possible. Their entire demeanor is built around a single, highly transactional question: how can others help me? This person might appear busy and important in the moment, but their deeply selfish behavior inherently pushes people away, and they are ultimately doomed to go through life powerless and utterly alone. After all, no one truly wants to work with someone who operates with such transparent selfishness. The master of human connection operates on a completely inverted philosophy. When they walk into a room, engage in a conversation, or meet someone new, their guiding internal question is entirely different. How can I help others? This simple shift from taking to giving is the absolute bedrock of meaningful relationship building. The fundamental reasoning behind this is brilliantly clear and simple. The more readily and freely you offer your help to the people around you, the more ready they will be to help you in return when the time comes. Uncalculated generosity is the fastest and most enduring way to build deep trust and mutual understanding between two human beings. By consistently offering value without demanding an immediate receipt, you cement and deepen your bonds with others, ensuring that over time you will inevitably reap double or even triple what you originally sowed. The reason so many people struggle with this concept is that they view the world through a lens of extreme scarcity. They mistakenly perceive relationships as a finite entity, viewing their social capital as a cake that gets continually smaller and smaller with every single slice someone else takes. Because of this flawed perspective, they treat every interaction as a short-term investment, expecting every single favor they perform to be instantly returned. But human connection defies the laws of finite resources. Relationships are not a shrinking cake. They are much more like human muscles. The more heavily you rely on them, and the more you use them through acts of service and connection, the more they grow, adapt, and strengthen over time. To truly break free from a self-centered view of the world and forge bonds that can withstand the heavy pressures of life, you must demonstrate constant, unwavering loyalty to the people within your orbit. Loyalty is not a passive state. It is an active daily choice that can take on many different forms. Consider what happens when the neat professional veneer of life suddenly cracks. Imagine a colleague or an acquaintance who is navigating a deeply painful, messy divorce, or battling a severe personal crisis that falls entirely outside the boundaries of their professional life. The transactional networker takes a step back, viewing the struggling individual as a temporary liability. But the generous connector steps forward into the mess. They do not just offer empty platitudes, they offer tangible emotional support when it is most desperately needed. They are willing to donate their personal time, perhaps just a half hour here and there to listen, to bring a meal, or to offer advice on a deeply personal problem. To the generous person, stepping away from the spreadsheet to help a fellow human being is never a waste of time. They understand that sitting with someone in their darkest hour and giving just a fraction of their time and empathy has the profound potential to pay them back in the form of a fiercely loyal, lifelong relationship. Generosity is not a networking tactic. It is a fundamental way of moving through the world. It is the quiet understanding that your own success is inextricably linked to the success and well-being of the people around you. When you commit to being a rising tide that lifts the boats of your peers, you create a powerful magnetic pull. People will naturally gravitate toward your warmth, your loyalty, and your genuine desire to see them thrive. But as you adopt this posture of radical giving, you will soon realize that the timing of your outreach matters just as much as the intent behind it. You cannot wait until a crisis strikes to suddenly become generous. You must learn the delicate art of building the well long before you ever find yourself thirsty. Chapter 3. Building the bridge before you need to cross. Imagine sitting at your desk on an otherwise ordinary Tuesday afternoon when a sudden, shocking email arrives. Your position has been eliminated, your company is restructuring, or your primary client has unexpectedly pulled their contract. In a state of sheer panic, you open your phone and scroll through your contacts, desperately looking for someone, anyone who might be able to throw you a lifeline. But as you stare at the names glowing on the screen, a cold realization sets into your bones. You have not spoken to any of these people in years. Reaching out now, when your hands are empty and your needs are overwhelming, feels fundamentally wrong. This perfectly illustrates one of the most pervasive and destructive myths in the professional world. The deeply misguided belief that you should only start looking to others when you actually need their help. Waiting until disaster strikes to build your support system is exactly like trying to scramble and purchase safety vests long after your ship has already hit the rocks and started sinking. By the time you realize you need them, it is already much too late. The true masters of human connection operate on the exact opposite principle. They understand that the most profound relationships are forged in times of peace, not in moments of panic. You must make it a daily, unwavering discipline to approach people and cultivate bonds long before you ever require their assistance. By reaching out when you want absolutely nothing in return, when you have no hidden agenda, no upcoming product launch, and no favor to ask, you create an incredibly rare environment where genuine trust and mutual understanding can organically take root. These two qualities are the absolute, non-negotiable foundations of any highly functional, resilient network. When you operate with a desperate, transactional motive, people can feel it immediately. Nobody respects or desires the company of a networking nuisance, a person who reveals themselves to be insincere, unscrupulous, or willing to gladly exploit others solely for their own personal advantage. True relationship building demands an extraordinary amount of patience. It is the work of a craftsman slowly laying bricks, constructing an intricate architecture one quiet step at a time. To truly earn the unwavering trust of others, you have to be willing to work for it, proving your character and your reliability bit by bit over months and years. You must fundamentally reframe how you view the timeline of your own success. In the realm of genuine human connection, you are not a sprinter frantically dashing toward an immediate finish line. You are a marathon runner. Your ultimate reward, your deepest and most resilient connections, will come not through sudden bursts of speed, but through steady, unyielding stamina. To visualize the sheer power of this stamina, imagine a young, ambitious university student stepping onto a sprawling college campus completely unknown and lacking any inherent social advantages. Instead of trying to instantly leap to the top of the social hierarchy by handing out resumes or aggressively inserting themselves into powerful circles, this student adopts a quiet, deeply intentional daily ritual. Every single evening, before going to sleep, they sit down at a small desk and pull out a stack of blank cue cards, writing down the names of all the new people they encountered that day. They document the small, deeply human details: a shared laugh, a hometown, a passionate opinion. Moving through the world day after day, this young person is consistently friendly and deeply approachable, projecting a genuine, unwavering interest whenever they engage in conversation with others. They are not asking for internships. They are simply ensuring that every interaction is built on a solid bedrock of trust and mutual understanding. Decades later, when this person eventually rises to the highest levels of leadership, the world will marvel at their seemingly effortless web of powerful allies. But there was no magic involved. They simply spent their entire life quietly creating their future network, one sincere conversation at a time. Building this bridge of trust before you ever need to cross it requires much more than simply remembering names and being polite. It requires you to step out of the sterile confines of formal introductions and find the deeper currents that pull human beings together. If you want to transform a casual, polite acquaintance into a fiercely loyal ally, you must learn how to step away from the polished veneer of the professional world and discover the unique elements that make a relationship truly stick. Chapter 4. The glue that binds us. There is a strange and pervasive illusion in the professional world regarding proximity. We often believe that simply being in the same room as someone for 40 hours a week automatically equates to a meaningful relationship. But if you pause and reflect on your own life, you will likely realize that you have spent hundreds of hours sitting across a desk from certain colleagues, yet you know absolutely nothing about the texture of their actual lives. This highlights a profound truth about human connection. Truly getting to understand and know another person is not determined by the sheer volume of time you spend in their presence, but rather entirely by the specific manner in which that time is spent. Deep friendships and incredibly close professional acquaintances are forged solely through the crucible of high-quality time. If you want to transform a sterile contact into a deeply trusted friend, you must shift your focus toward discovering what are known as relationship glues. Relationship glues are the vital, often overlooked factors that possess the unique power to permanently bond two individuals together. In almost every case, these glues take the form of a shared interest, a mutual passion, or a collective activity. It does not necessarily matter what the specific activity is, so long as it is something that brings genuine joy to both of you, acting as a natural bridge between your two worlds. It could be a fierce, competitive love for a specific sport, an obsession with discovering incredible local food, a meticulous hobby like stamp collecting, holding season tickets for a baseball team, debating local politics, or even something as adrenaline-fueled as skydiving. When you tap into these shared passions, the invisible walls of professional formality instantly begin to dissolve. To understand why this is so remarkably effective, you have to consider the environments in which we usually operate. The modern office, the formal networking event, the brightly lit conference room, these are spaces inherently designed for self-protection and posturing. We wear armor in these spaces. But the moment you step entirely away from the office and leave those stiff, formal events behind, the armor naturally falls away, and people immediately become far more relaxed, delightfully genuine, and infinitely more approachable. Because of this psychological shift, there is absolutely no better time to discover the true essence of a person than during an occasion where they are genuinely unguardedly having fun. Imagine attempting to build trust with a highly guarded executive by taking them to a predictable, expensive, and utterly silent steakhouse. The conversation will inevitably remain trapped in the shallow waters of quarterly earnings and industry gossip. Now imagine discovering that this same executive harbors a lifelong passion for rescuing animals, and instead you invite them to spend a Saturday morning volunteering at a chaotic, joyful local dog shelter. In that messy, vibrant environment, wearing old jeans and covered in mud, the corporate titles completely vanish. You are no longer two professionals maneuvering for leverage. You are two human beings bonded by a shared, joyful experience. That single Saturday morning will forge a vastly stronger connection than a decade of polite lunches ever could. However, simply changing the venue is not enough. You must also bring a certain kind of energy to the interaction. Even in the most relaxed environments, you have to be fully prepared to act as a deeply engaging conversation partner. To master this, you must adopt one incredibly simple yet radically counterintuitive rule. The absolute best way to make good small talk is to refuse to make small talk at all. Small talk is a defense mechanism. It is a way for two people to fill the silence without ever having to reveal anything real about themselves. Instead of trapping yourself and your partner in an endless, agonizing loop of mindless banalities about the weather or the traffic, you must choose to be fiercely attentive, breathtakingly honest, and radically open. When you sit down with someone, look for an opportunity to share something that is genuinely interesting, deeply personal, or intellectually enlightening. Ask them questions that require them to pause and actually search their soul for the answer. Share a recent struggle you have overcome, a profound book that recently shifted your worldview, or a quiet hope you hold for the future. When you strip away the safety of small talk and offer someone a piece of your authentic self, you give them the silent permission to do the exact same thing. When the interaction finally ends, the other person will walk away remembering you in a remarkably positive, vivid light, and they will genuinely look forward to every single subsequent encounter they get to have with you. Building these deep bonds is intensely powerful, but it is only half of the equation. To truly solidify your place in the world, you must take these profound individual connections and learn how to sustain them with unyielding persistence. Chapter 5. The Power of Persistent Presence. There is a fascinating, rarely discussed parallel between a globally recognized film star fighting to remain relevant in a notoriously fickle industry and a master connector striving to build a legendary web of relationships. In order to ensure they do not simply fade into obscurity and disappear entirely from the scene, both of these individuals must wake up every single day with the exact same mindset. They must be completely ready and willing to make new contacts and forge fresh connections with the people around them. Connection is not a switch you flip on only when you attend a formal networking event or when you are actively hunting for a new opportunity. It is a daily, relentless discipline. To build a truly powerful presence in the world, you must develop a steadfast patience with others, alongside an unwavering, almost athletic determination to jump at absolutely any opportunity to network and engage. We often mistakenly believe that the most powerful people in the world operate from places of deep isolation. We imagine them barricaded inside silent, glass-walled corner offices surrounded by gatekeepers, communicating with the outside world solely through formal emails and tightly scheduled phone calls. But if you observe the truly exceptional leaders, the ones who command immense, unshakable loyalty, you will see a completely different reality. A truly brilliant executive does not shut themselves away from the lifeblood of their organization. Instead of relying exclusively on the telephone for all their communications, they make it a daily, non-negotiable priority to physically walk through the company spaces for hours at a time. Imagine this kind of leader in action. They leave the quiet sanctuary of the executive suite and step out onto the loud, chaotic floors of the company. They might set a quiet internal goal to speak directly to at least 50 different people every single day. As they walk the halls, they do not just nod at the senior vice presidents. They stop and have genuine, unhurried conversations with the individuals working on the absolute lowest rungs of the company ladder just as often as they speak to those on the highest. They ask the maintenance staff about their families. They check in with the entry-level clerks about their weekend plans, and they listen intently to the struggles of middle management. By maintaining this persistent, visible presence, they do not just manage a company, they weave an invisible, unbreakable web of human loyalty that can weather any corporate storm. This level of daily engagement requires a staggering amount of energy. Building a massive, highly responsive network is not for the faint of heart. It requires an impressive, almost superhuman amount of patience and sheer determination. To truly grasp the physical and mental stamina required, picture someone running an exhausting, high-stakes campaign for public office, or a community leader fighting to pass a monumental piece of local legislation. Their days are not composed of a few polite meetings. Their alarm rings at 5 in the morning, and before the sun has even risen, they are already making their first round of critical telephone calls. As the day unfolds, this individual pushes through physical exhaustion to deliver 4 or 5 impassioned speeches to entirely different crowds. When the workday technically ends, they do not go home to rest. They attend several evening cocktail parties, followed by visiting constituents directly in their private homes to listen to their most pressing concerns. Over the course of a single, grueling day, this person might physically shake the hands of roughly 2,000 different people. But the true magic, the absolute genius of their persistent presence, is that they do not treat these interactions as a blur of faceless numbers. Through sheer mental discipline and deep empathy, they actually remember the names and the stories of the many people they meet along that exhausting journey. This is the true power of persistent presence. It is the refusal to tap out when you feel tired. It is the decision to look up from your screen, to walk across the room, and to extend your hand one more time, even when you have already done it 100 times that week. When you consistently show up for people day after day, year after year, you become a permanent fixture in their minds. You transition from being a fleeting acquaintance to an immovable pillar in their professional and personal lives. But simply being present and being remembered is only the vessel. Once you have earned a person's time and secured their attention through your steadfast patience, you must ensure that when you finally open your mouth, you actually have something profoundly valuable to offer them. Chapter 6. Crafting Your Unique Voice. Whenever we meet someone new, an invisible, almost subconscious calculation takes place within the first few moments of interaction. We look across the table, shake their hand, and silently ask ourselves a very specific, deeply human question. Would I actually want to spend an entire hour with this person at dinner? This simple, visceral question is the ultimate sorting mechanism of human connection. It is the proverbial act of separating the wheat from the chaff. You can master every subtle tactic of eye contact and handshaking, but if you are someone who no one truly wants to listen to, or if spending time with you feels like an emotional chore, you are never going to succeed in building a strong, lasting network of people who are genuinely eager and willing to help you out. To capture and hold another human being's interest in a world completely saturated with noise, you must first ensure you actually have something meaningful to say. This requires a deep, insatiable curiosity about the world outside your immediate profession. You must cultivate the intellectual bandwidth to hold an intelligent, engaging discussion on a wide variety of topics, whether the conversation naturally drifts toward global politics, the intricate mechanics of a specific sport, the cultural nuances of international travel, or fascinating breakthroughs in scientific subjects. Think of a time you were seated next to a stranger at a long, formal event. If their entire conversational repertoire consisted solely of complaining about their daily commute or rigidly reciting their job description, the interaction likely felt suffocating. But if they possessed the ability to seamlessly transition from the history of architecture to the psychology of endurance sports, they became undeniably magnetic. Broad curiosity makes you a bridge between different worlds, allowing you to connect with almost anyone, anywhere. However, being a pleasant, well-rounded conversationalist is only the baseline requirement for entry. If you truly want to captivate someone's imagination and leave an indelible mark on their memory, you must offer the world far more than just pleasant, fleeting conversation. You need to fiercely stand for something. You must embody a completely unique message that unmistakably sets you apart from the endless sea of other capable professionals. This attractive, highly original message acts as a powerful gravitational pull, naturally making others actively want to pull you into their own networks and proudly associate their name with yours. It is not enough to simply exist within your chosen industry. You must courageously carve out a distinct, undeniable identity within it. This unique message does not have to be a world-shattering philosophical manifesto. It could be deeply centered around a specific, innovative idea, a highly effective daily habit you have mastered, or a rare and incredibly specialized skill. Whatever you choose to stand for, it must be an area in which you are deeply respected as a leading authority, a genuine expert who possesses knowledge far beyond the superficial level. Imagine a mid-level professional who decides they are utterly tired of blending into the grey background of corporate meetings. Instead of trying to be moderately proficient at every single task, they decide to obsessively master one singular niche, perhaps the hidden psychology of consumer decision-making. To achieve this level of mastery, they do not just skim a few articles. They aggressively and constantly engage with the absolute latest ideas in this specific arena, actively seeking out and getting to know the leading thinkers and pioneers of that space, and hungrily reading absolutely everything they can find on the subject. There is no standard universal blueprint for how you go about gathering this immense expert knowledge. The exact path you take is entirely up to you. What is absolutely necessary, however, is that you remain profoundly open-minded, relentlessly ready to learn, and driven by a deeply healthy ambition. Over time, this deep, sustained obsession completely transforms you. You step into rooms not as a passive observer, but as the undeniable expert who can flawlessly put their carefully gathered knowledge into immediate, practical action. You craft a voice that the world cannot afford to ignore, naturally preparing you to step confidently into the larger, incredibly powerful ecosystems where the most connected individuals reside. Chapter 7. Navigating the Hubs of Connection. When we first set out to build our professional and personal circles, we often picture our social world as a vast, flat grid where everyone is roughly equal in their reach and influence. We assume that to grow our network, we must simply knock on one door at a time, slowly adding single individuals to our Rolodex in a linear, predictable fashion. But human society does not operate on a flat grid. It is constructed much more like the sprawling, uneven topography of a massive mountain range. While most of us are quietly tending to our own small valleys of immediate friends and co-workers, there are towering, invisible mountains standing among us. In the realm of relationship building, these towering figures are known as superconnectors, and a budding network is entirely dependent on integrating with them. To truly understand a superconnector, you must realize they are fundamentally different from someone who merely happens to be popular or outgoing. A true superconnector is a highly unique individual who possesses an astonishing database of literally thousands of personal contacts. But what makes them truly remarkable and deeply powerful is not just the sheer staggering volume of the people they know. It is the breathtaking diversity of their address book. A normal person usually associates within their own comfortable lane. Doctors know other doctors, artists know other artists, and accountants know other accountants. A superconnector, however, effortlessly crosses all boundaries, holding tight connections with people from drastically different, entirely unrelated walks of life. To visualize exactly how these individuals control the flow of human opportunity, consider a famous, deeply revealing sociological experiment from decades past. Researchers decided to test the invisible architecture of human connection by launching a massive, coordinated effort. They sent out over 100 identical letters to ordinary people living in a quiet, unassuming Midwestern town. The instructions attached to the letters were beautifully simple yet highly challenging. Each person was asked to ensure their specific letter eventually reached a very specific target, a stockbroker working hundreds of miles away on the East Coast. However, there was a crucial catch. They could not simply mail the letter directly to the stockbroker's address. They were only allowed to pass it along to a personal acquaintance they felt might bring the letter one step closer to the final destination. As the researchers tracked these letters, they watched them travel through a chaotic, unpredictable web of distant relatives, old college roommates, and former business associates. But when they analyzed the final leg of the journey, they uncovered a staggering truth about human society. Despite taking dozens of wildly different, entirely unrelated routes across the country, the vast majority of the successful letters were ultimately handed to the target stockbroker by the exact same three people. Those three final links in the chain were the superconnectors. They were the crucial, central hubs of the human wheel, the vital intersections that enabled seemingly impossible messages to finally reach their destination by utilizing their vast ties across every conceivable social class and profession. If you want to rapidly expand your own reach and dramatically boost your personal network, you must actively seek out these super connectors and figure out how to respectfully enter their orbit. You cannot usually find these people hiding in isolated cubicles or working in highly repetitive, antisocial environments. Because their lives are built entirely on human interaction, they naturally gravitate towards specific fields that act as societal crossroads. If you look closely, you will consistently find these super connectors thriving in the high-stakes worlds of politics and lobbying, driving the narratives in journalism and public relations, or warmly commanding the bustling, energetic floors of popular bars and restaurants. These specific professions are absolute, tailor-made ecosystems for super connectors. The very nature of these jobs demands that they stand at the intersection of public life, allowing them to constantly meet a wide, endlessly rotating range of diverse people. When you identify a super connector in one of these hubs, you do not approach them by asking for a favor. You approach them by offering value, by becoming a fiercely loyal patron of their restaurant, a trusted source for their journalism, or a dedicated volunteer for their cause. When you finally earn the trust of just one genuine super connector, you do not just gain a single friend, you instantly gain a quiet, powerful introduction to 1,000 new worlds. But as your network begins to expand at this terrifying speed, you must ensure you actually know where you are going. You must find your internal compass. Chapter 8. Discovering your inner compass. There is a dangerous illusion that often takes hold when we look at individuals who have reached the absolute pinnacles of human achievement. When we gaze upon a highly effective president, an innovative chief executive, or a world-class top athlete standing proudly on a podium, we are deeply tempted to believe they simply stumbled into their greatness by sheer chance. We tell ourselves that luck, circumstance, or a miraculous twist of fate dropped them onto their throne. But if you peer behind the curtain of any extraordinary life, you will never find an accidental journey. Whatever you want to become in this life, you are absolutely never going to get there by chance. You can build the most powerful, sprawling network of super connectors in the world, but if you do not have a fiercely clear direction, you are simply a highly connected wanderer. To truly harness the power of your relationships, you must first make your ultimate life goals incredibly clear and breathtakingly concrete, and then make a deliberate, unyielding decision about exactly how you are going to set about achieving them. It is only after you draw this map that it becomes possible to develop the specific strategies that will ultimately enable you to find lasting success. However, before you rush to start writing down arbitrary financial targets or chasing impressive-sounding job titles, you must pause and look inward. When you begin the profound work of setting your life's goals, you must always focus first on discovering what is known as your blue flame. In the physical world, the blue part of a flame is the hottest, most intense, and most pure point of the fire. In your life, the blue flame represents that rare, magical crossover between your deepest passions and your natural abilities. Discovering this intersection is incredibly important, as it acts as the ultimate guiding force in helping us make the right professional decisions throughout our lives. To understand the devastating cost of ignoring this flame, picture a highly intelligent, capable individual who spent their entire youth being told they would make an excellent corporate attorney. They have a sharp mind for argumentation, so they blindly follow this external validation, pushing through years of grueling education. A decade later, they are sitting in a magnificent corner office making a phenomenal income, but they are haunted by a crushing, invisible weight. Their soul is completely starved. They are making their living doing work that is actually not satisfying at all to their core being. Countless people resort to taking on jobs that require talents they do not genuinely possess, or that are simply completely wrong for their internal wiring, which only guarantees that they remain deeply discontent and profoundly unhappy. People who, by contrast, stubbornly choose to follow their true passion and utilize their genuine talents, those who operate squarely within their blue flame, will never have to face these agonizing, soul-crushing problems. If you are reading this and feeling a sudden pang of anxiety because you are not yet completely sure what your own blue flame is, you must let go of that fear immediately. You can discover it by dedicating yourself to a beautifully simple, deeply revealing test. Find a quiet room completely free from the noisy opinions of the outside world and bring a blank piece of paper. First, make an exhaustive list of absolutely all your dreams and your goals, writing them down regardless of how utterly ridiculous, wildly ambitious, or completely banal they might initially seem to the logical mind. let your imagination run completely untethered. Then, on a separate page, make a second list of everything in this world you genuinely enjoy doing, the specific actions and environments that effortlessly bring you a deep sense of pleasure and timelessness. Finally, place these two lists side by side and combine them, actively hunting for the hidden places where your grand dreams and the daily actions you genuinely enjoy perfectly overlap. That beautiful point of intersection is the spark of your blue flame. Sometimes, however, we are entirely too close to our own lives to see our brilliance clearly. Our insecurities blind us to our most powerful gifts. To overcome this, it can be incredibly helpful to sit down and speak to someone you really, deeply trust. A lifelong friend, a devoted partner, or a cherished mentor. Look them in the eye and ask them the questions we are usually too terrified to voice. Ask them what they genuinely admire about you. Ask them to be brutally honest about the areas in which they think you could use a bit of help or refinement. Demand to know what they, from their outside vantage point, truly consider to be your greatest strengths and your most glaring weaknesses. The answers they provide will often completely shock you, illuminating talents you have entirely taken for granted. When you finally combine this external truth with your internal passions and find your blue flame, and when you finally secure a job that allows you to kindle that fire every single day, the entire world truly becomes your oyster. But a flame alone is not enough. To build a roaring fire, you need a meticulous, actionable blueprint for the future. Chapter 9. The Architecture of Action. You have searched your soul and finally found your spark. But a spark is not a fire, and a deeply felt mission does not simply become a tangible reality overnight. If you were tasked with building a magnificent, enduring house, you would never just walk onto an empty patch of dirt and start blindly hammering wooden boards together. You would desperately need the right tools and a meticulous, highly detailed blueprint. In the realm of professional and personal achievement, both of these crucial elements are combined into a structured, forward-looking strategy, an actionable networking plan. This plan is the foundational architecture of your ambition, providing you with a clear daily list of tasks to incorporate into your routine while continuously motivating you to be fiercely active in working toward your ultimate vision. The very first step of constructing this grand architecture is the deliberate development of your personal long-term, middle-term, and short-term goals. You must project your mind into the future and think deeply about exactly what you want to achieve within the next 3 years, and then methodically work backward. Break this massive, intimidating timeline down into manageable 3-month and 1-year stages, carefully filling in a specific interim goal for every single stage until you eventually end up with a beautifully clear, highly structured 3-year roadmap. To make this map resilient against the unpredictable chaos of life, it is incredibly constructive to establish both an A goal and a secondary B goal for every single time slot on your calendar. Imagine, for example, a passionate individual whose ultimate A goal is to become a leading teacher at a prestigious academy in exactly 3 years' time. Their corresponding B goal could be something highly practical and foundational, like successfully relocating to live directly within the specific catchment area they eventually wish to work in. For every single one of these primary and secondary goals, you must write down the exact physical places you need to go, the specific tools and skills you absolutely need to acquire before you can achieve them, and the names of anyone you believe could crucially help you along the way. This completed, highly personalized plan becomes the tailor-made driving force of your life, showing you exactly where to go, what to do, and who to meet on your relentless journey to fuel your deepest passions. But a brilliantly designed plan is entirely useless if no one knows who you are or what you stand for when you finally arrive at your destination. If you truly want to execute your plan and be undeniably successful, you have to become your very own brand. We live our entire lives surrounded by massive corporate brands that silently dictate how we perceive the world. When you see a specific geometric logo on a pair of athletic shoes, or a stylized emblem on a sleek metal computer, your brain instantly floods with very specific associations of quality, identity, and value. But this powerful psychological phenomenon is not strictly reserved for multinational corporations and physical products. Completely normal, everyday people can absolutely create deeply impactful brands as well. To transform yourself into a living, breathing brand, the first vital step is to develop a razor-sharp personal branding message. You must sit down in quiet isolation and aggressively ask yourself a series of difficult, revealing questions. What truly sets me aside as being entirely different or wonderfully special? What are my absolute greatest strengths, and what are my glaring weaknesses? Which of my past achievements fills me with the most profound sense of pride, and what exactly do I do to create a tangible feeling of worth for others? What do I want people to instantly think of the moment they hear my name spoken aloud or see it written down on a piece of paper? And what do I ultimately want to be famous for? Having ruthlessly answered these questions, you should be in the powerful position to distill your entire professional essence into a clear, magnetic branding message using just 2 simple, unforgettable sentences. Once your core message is forged, you have to think incredibly hard about your brand packaging. This means taking a highly critical, objective look at the physical and stylistic choices you make every single day. Your clothes, your unique conversational style, your grooming, the design of your business cards, your digital letterheads, and the way you organize your physical workspace. Everything that plays a part in creating an outward impression must be meticulously tailored to perfectly suit the exact image you want the outside world to see. Finally, you must make this meticulously crafted brand known to the larger world by becoming your own relentless public relations company. You must deliberately do things that constantly put you in a brilliant light, focusing intensely on gathering positive attention from the right people. This might mean bravely volunteering to take on the grueling, complex projects at work that absolutely nobody else wants to touch, or consistently putting forward bold ideas and suggestions that force your superiors to notice your profound initiative and creativity. Naturally, being a master of your own PR also requires the fierce discipline to avoid negative attention at all costs. You must never, for example, arrogantly demand a massive pay raise or a promotion if your recent work has not been completely up to scratch. By combining a flawless, step-by-step action plan with a magnetic, unforgettable personal brand, you build a machine designed for success. But no machine operates perfectly in isolation, and the final step of your journey requires you to seek out the master craftsmen who have walked the path before you. Chapter 10. The Circle of Growth. There is a profound, almost universal truth hidden just behind the curtains of human greatness. When we witness a breathtaking performance, a virtuoso musician commanding a silent concert hall, or an elite athlete achieving an impossible feat of physical endurance, we are completely mesmerized by the individual standing in the spotlight. We applaud their solitary genius. But those individuals, the ones operating at the absolute razor's edge of their potential, know a deeply humbling secret. Nobody reaches the summit alone. The greatest musicians and the most legendary sports stars in the world fundamentally understand that without a brilliant, demanding coach standing quietly in the shadows, they would be incredibly unlikely to ever perform to the true height of their abilities. You can possess all the raw talent the universe has to offer, but if you want to be remarkably successful in this life, you absolutely must surround yourself with the right mentors. To fully grasp the necessity of mentorship, we must look backward into history at how true mastery was traditionally forged. Centuries ago, young artisans did not simply read a manual, declare themselves experts, and begin selling their wares. They learned their intricate trades through grueling transformative apprenticeships, painstakingly working alongside the hardened, experienced old masters of their profession for years. It was only after they had absorbed the quiet, unspoken wisdom of these masters, the exact pressure of the chisel, the perfect temperature of the forge, that they were finally capable of developing their very own unique style. This ancient dynamic is just as critical in the modern world of business and innovation. Young, ambitious minds can learn an immeasurable, transformative amount from heavily experienced professionals who have already walked the treacherous path ahead of them. Imagine a wildly ambitious, highly intelligent young executive trying to navigate a ruthless, fast-moving corporate industry entirely on their own. They might work 90 hours a week, frantically reading every strategy report and obsessing over every data point, but they are constantly making agonizing, unforced errors because they lack context. Now, contrast them with a peer who possesses the exact same ambition, but who chooses to humble their ego and actively seek out the guidance of an industry veteran. This mentor does not just hand them a textbook, they offer the young executive the priceless gift of perspective. They warn them about invisible political landmines, they teach them how to read the subtle body language of a boardroom, and they share the painful, hard-won lessons of their own past failures. Because the modern business world requires highly adaptable teams to react fiercely and sharply to incredibly dynamic, fast-moving surroundings, this kind of deeply personal mentorship is the single most effective way to extract the absolute best out of every individual. However, mentorship is not solely about finding one singular sage at the top of the mountain. It is about intentionally curating the entire ecosystem of human beings that surround you every single day. The people you allow into your immediate orbit have a terrifyingly powerful, measurable impact on exactly how high you will ultimately achieve. Your peer group dictates your ceiling. If you choose to comfortably surround yourself with complacent individuals who complain about their circumstances and refuse to grow, their gravity will inevitably pull you down into mediocrity. Both your ultimate success and your devastating failures can often be directly attributed to the fundamental nature of the peer group you keep around you. Conversely, actively choosing to place yourself in rooms where you are the least experienced person, surrounding yourself with the fearless pioneers, the heavy hitters, and the highly successful individuals in your field, creates a massive, undeniable advantage in your life. Excellence is deeply contagious. Countless studies of human behavior have proven that if you intentionally surround yourself with people who possess incredible, expansive networks, your own personal list of contacts will organically and rapidly begin to grow. Furthermore, if you relentlessly surround yourself with highly successful, driven people, you yourself are astronomically more likely to find your own profound success. You begin to unconsciously adopt their unyielding standards, their expansive vocabulary, and their boundless belief in what is possible. As we reach the culmination of this journey, we must recognize that the architecture of a deeply successful life is never truly finished. The art of building a legendary web of human connection is not a temporary tactic you use to simply extract wealth or status from the world. True, lasting networking is a deeply philosophical way of living based entirely on a foundation of radical openness, fierce determination, and profound empathy. You can only hope to become a master connector if you dedicate your life to truly understanding your own soul, while simultaneously discovering what it means to fiercely and genuinely appreciate the other human beings walking alongside you. When you strip away all the strategies, the action plans, and the daily disciplines, what remains is the pure, beating heart of human existence, our undeniable need for one another. The solitary path is an illusion that leads only to exhaustion and isolation. True power, true joy, and true legacy are found in the messy, beautiful work of reaching out, offering your strength to a stranger, and building a bridge where there was once only empty space. And when you finally reach the pinnacle of your own success, the ultimate expression of this journey is to turn around, extend your hand into the shadows, and become the mentor for the next brilliant, terrified mind stepping onto the path. This is the endless, vital circle of growth.